Welcome to CPAC Now, America UnCanceled, or the way I like to call it, Schlapp and Company. Because my next guest always takes the credit when we do the radio show together because it's O'Connor and Company, and I'm usually the company. Joining me today, one of my dearest friends, someone who it's like my partner in crime. We're always in trouble. Larry O'Connor, WMAL morning host, works for Town Hall as some sort of big deal, senior editor or something like that. And, definitely a friend of CPAC's. Larry, thanks for joining me.
I don't know why you want to diminish my role at Town Hall. I'm creative director and video host. My videos go out every day all across the Town Hall media platforms there. But thank you for having. And you're right. We always do get into trouble. I feel like we've been separated. There's like they put me in a corner, put you in a corner because they don't let us be on the CPAC live show as much as we used to.
Well, I think we got so crazy in the past couple months, and then all of a sudden I was like, why hasn't Larry been on? And then we're going to do our cooking session, but then of course everyone got also again busy. We're making up too many excuses, but we are going to have a Christmas special.
We have a country to save, Mercedes. We're pretty busy right now.
We do have a country to save. So let's just jump right into this incredible country, the United States of America, and how the communists, the socialists, the Marxists, you mean the Democrat Party and Biden, how they're quickly destroying the country. And it's being reflected in these latest polls that came out on the NBC News, which President Joe Biden, basically his approval rating has declined to the lowest level of his presidency, 40%, as these strong majorities disapprove of his handling of foreign policy and the Israel-Hamas war. Jump right in. What's your initial reaction?
Well, it's almost like embracing anti-Semitism and wanting to throw our most important ally in the world, Israel, under the bus and allowing the terrorists who want to wipe them off the map isn't popular with the American people. Who knew? Who knew that Rashida Tlaib's unbelievable hateful rhetoric is not what the American people actually want in a foreign policy? And it gets even worse than that, Mercedes. Put that latest atrocious policy that the Biden administration is pushing on our friend Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel, and add to that the unbelievable economic morass that we're still struggling under. And this presidency is ripe for the taking 1 year from now. As long as Republicans can stop fighting amongst ourselves and get in line and give the American people some hope and something to vote for, because God knows they've got plenty to vote against.
Are you saying get in line and support Donald Trump? Or are you saying just get in line?
I'm saying get in line and make your case to the American people. And as the primary process unfolds, if it certainly looks like Donald Trump is going to prevail, then yes, we got to line up behind whoever the nominee is. And it sure looks like it's going to be Donald Trump. And yes, let's go.
My answer to Republicans is get in line behind Donald Trump. He obviously is dominating in this presidential race. This NBC poll also said that Trump maintains a significant lead. You're talking about he's the first choice for 58% of GOP primary voters. That's followed by Ron DeSantis, 18%, Nikki Haley, 13%. Why are still Chris Christie and these other guys still in the race?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. Well, Chris Christie has told you why he's in the race, because he wants to stop Donald Trump.
Right.
When your entire reason for being is to stop a fellow Republican, it's time to leave the stage. Vivek Ramaswamy, I think, is running for his future political ambitions, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's interesting, though, when you mentioned the polls, since you brought it up, Mercedes. Listen, I'm completely neutral in this. I want a Republican to beat Joe Biden. That's all I care about, or whoever the Democrats put up there. If it's Trump, I'm for Trump. If it's DeSantis, I'm for DeSantis. But I want the primary process to unfold. But you look at these polls, every single one of the Republican candidates will beat Joe Biden.
Yeah.
But the one who does the best is actually the one who's finishing third amongst Republicans. That's Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley actually performs better against Joe Biden than the other nominees or the other candidates. That's actually surprising to me.
Which is interesting because it is surprising, too, because I would view Nikki Haley as someone who's a real neocon. She is very forceful when it comes to U.S. intervention in these different situations that we're seeing abroad. That obviously is very concerning for a lot of Republicans who do not support just this blindless continuous spending in Ukraine. Obviously, we're seeing what's happening in Israel as well.
Yeah.
And then you have the threat of China. So it is interesting how she's really played out. But really, Ron DeSantis hasn't been able to gain much traction even after the debates, because quite frankly, I think the RNC is wasting too much time focusing on these nonsense presidential debates instead of focus on winning elections like in Virginia.
Well, Mercy, I think you're right about Nikki Haley in particular, definitely, because listen, the establishment types and the neocons, they would love for Nikki Haley to be pushed upon us. And it's the same message that they did with Mitt Romney and with John McCain and with Bob Dole. It's like, he's electable. He's electable. They're telling me that she's the one who's electable. Here's the problem. She's only electable if the Republican base is energized to come out and vote for her. So despite what the polls show, who's going to go out there and stand in the cold and or at a rally and knock on doors for Nikki Haley? Nobody. Donald Trump does have that energy. He has that momentum, and he energizes the base for sure.
We've seen that he's narrowly leading Joe Biden for the first time. That is Donald Trump. We're also seeing, for example, that young voters, interestingly enough, not a natural contingency for Republicans. However, since you fall into that young category between the ages of 18 and 30-something,
that's me,
Larry, that's totally you. At least you act like an 18-year-old, but that's a different story.
I act like a 12-year-old.
Yeah, that's true, too. I mean, they seem to be shifting towards Donald Trump as well. What do you think is causing that phenomenon?
I think they're seeing that they don't have any job prospects. They're seeing that they don't have a future laid out in front of them right now with this presidency and this president's policies, that will be picked up, by the way, whether they bounce him off the ticket and give it to Kamala Harris or Gavin Newsom or Michelle Obama. It's all the same old policies, and they recognize that there's no future in that. Also, I mean, he just turned 81 today, Mercedes.
You mean Biden, right?
Yeah, Biden just turned 81, and it's showing. I mean, honestly, I can't believe I'm saying this, but he's an old 81.
I know.
You know? I mean,
you'll be a young 81, but Biden will be an old 81.
Yeah.
So, and don't you think there's such this divide between the Democrat Party, especially when it comes to this issue of Israel? Like you saw these protests out in front of the DNC headquarters, and you're sensing.
Oh, I think you're generous calling them protests. It was a riot.
No, it was a riot. It was violent.
Absolute insurrection-y riot.
Yeah, and so just even that divide amongst Democrats, I think, is harming Joe Biden. Do you think that they can, come together on this issue at some point, number one? And number two, I mean, do you think the Democrats are going to say, bye-bye, Joe, we need someone younger?
Yeah, I think Democrats have made a deal with the devil here because a huge amount of
they've made a deal with the devil a long time ago. I don't know what you're talking about.
But specific to the Israel question, they have made a deal with the devil on the true intellectual heft, if there is one within the Democratic Party, and also fundraising power. The reason why Rashida Tlaib is tolerated is because they use her and Ilhan Omar and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to raise money and raise funds for the party and for Act Blue, this left-wing fundraising machine that they utilize. Right. So they've tolerated that, and now they realize that this is a monster that they've created, and they can't actually bring themselves to oppose them in any sort of stalwart and forceful way, because they'll then alienate this very small yet loud and forceful part of the Democratic Party apparatus that you see in the media and in the culture and on college campuses. And they've imported this anti-Semitism from other countries. They've imported people without vetting them into this country legally and illegally to become a part of this nation. And now we're seeing this ugly, ugly anti-Jewish, anti-Israel, anti-Semitic face within the Democratic Party themselves. Now they're stuck with it.
And it's not only here, but you're seeing it, for example, in France, in England. Like you're seeing it, an international kind of phenomenon happening with this pro-Hamas propaganda, obviously, I think being funded by many of our adversaries in the Middle East. And that seems to be really percolating in all these different countries. But here in the United States, I mean, I got to tell you, if I'd be a Jewish parent, I would be so concerned of my kid going to, college and really getting assaulted by some of these violent pro-Hamas protesters.
100%, Mercedes. And isn't it amazing that for years now we've had to endure people calling us anti-Semitic, comparing us to Nazis, comparing us to Hitler, when, Donald Trump is the man who moved the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem and was applauded and cheered by American conservatives. It's American conservatives who have stood by and supported, either through the elected officials that we put into office or through our actual fundraising ability for the nation of Israel, for Benjamin Netanyahu, for the Likud party, and the conservatives in Israel. We're the ones who have stood by them. We're the ones who support Israel. We're the ones who support Jewish Americans too, and conservative Jews. It's Jewish Americans who are now opening their eyes saying, oh my God, who is this standing next to me in the Democratic Party who is now basically an existential threat to the Jewish people and the nation of Israel? It's maddening that they call us anti-Semitic.
Interestingly enough, while there is this talk for Joe Biden, questioning his mental fitness, he's turned 81 years old. It seems that at least in this poll, in the NBC News poll, it says that he does have the approval rating of his own party. He's getting about 75% of the national Democratic primary voters. That is Joe Biden. But I want to play a clip here of Joe interacting with a little girl who he thought was 17 years old and was really 6 years old. Let's take a listen here.
Yeesh.
Thank you. And I love your ears. I love them. They're really cool. What's your name?
Catherine.
Catherine, what a beautiful name. That's my mommy's name. Well, nice to see. How old are you, 17? 6.
Really, Larry? Really? This is...
It's so disturbing. And, you can sort of, normally you'd be able to write this off to just an old guy trying to be the funny grandpa figure and talking to, but this man has a history. Mm-hmm. The man has a history specifically with little girls. And there's just some things you don't say. It's like, what does that even mean? How old are you? 17? Like, are you of age? I mean, I'm
like
sorry for going there, but
ears, it was so odd. The whole thing
well, I think she
like...
was wearing little kitty cat ears or something,
God,
and he was. But it's still, it's just wrong. And there's plenty of videos out there showing his behavior around other little girls. And here's the other maddening thing about it: he actually has a granddaughter that little girl's age, who he refuses to acknowledge even exists, who they pretend doesn't exist because she's the result of his son Hunter's one-night stand with an exotic dancer. I mean, he should just lay off the kids, just stay away from kids. And the people who protect this man, the people around him in the White House, they should keep him from being in situations like this because it's gross. It's creepy.
Yeah. Well, let's contrast that to President Donald Trump, who went to go visit his granddaughter at school. It was like the cutest little video. I'm going to play that for you.
I know, right?
So there it is. This is the image that we should see more of Donald Trump, which is that with his grandchildren, showing that like he's actually like this great guy, as opposed to how they portray him in the media as being like this demonic figure that they love to do.
I know, it is charming. In fact, back on Halloween, when you saw Biden acting and mumbling and stumbling, I was reminded of the great moment when he was putting the candy bar on top of the head of the kid who was dressed like a minion. He's very funny, and he is fun when he's candid and around children. And you're right. Listen, I think the president had a good week of optics from that moment with his granddaughter, and then the scene at the border. I mean, this was Trump at his best this week.
That's right. That's right. Let's actually play that scene of the president at the border. He fed some border aid patrol agents. Let's watch that.
Great. Got it?
Told they're going to basically make sure they serve everybody.
So this is where you have Joe Biden, who doesn't go to the border, who avoids the border, who's letting suspected terrorists come through the border and allow for this human trafficking to happen of these innocent children. And there you have Donald Trump saying, I stand with my border Patrol agents.
Yeah, not only that, but don't forget, Joe Biden also threw those Border Patrol agents under the bus with that fake story about them whipping Haitian migrants who were trying to cross the border illegally. Of course, there were no whips involved. It never happened. But of course, Biden jumped right on board that because he's awful. He's awful to law enforcement, and he's certainly awful to the Border Patrol. That was a great image for Trump. But even more importantly, he got that endorsement from Governor Abbott in Texas.
That's right.
And he talked about what he's going to do on the border. When Trump sticks with policy, especially the policies that show a stark contrast between what he was able to achieve as president and what Biden has broken and blown apart, that's how he's going to win this election, because all he's got to do is say, hey, remember what things were like back when I was president? Look what Biden has done. And the border is the top of that iceberg.
That is right. Larry O'Connor, you should be hired for for President Trump's campaign. He could absolutely use your help, but we need you on the radio and on TV. So, you're just.
I'll go wherever I'm called, Mercy. You
exactly.
know that. I go where you tell me.
Exactly. So you're on Schlapp and Company. That'll be the name of the new show. I think I'm going to talk to Matt about that. No, I'm kidding.
I'm proud to be. Actually, it should be Mercedes and Company.
Don't you think?
To be fair.
So fun.
Yeah. Because he would think it's about him, and it's really all about
It's never about him. Absolutely not. Larry O'Connor, thank you so much for joining me on America Uncanceled.
Thank you, and happy Thanksgiving to your wonderful family.
Happy Thanksgiving.